right, welcome back to another edition of Not Weird, Just Autistic TV. For those of you here for the first time, thank you for joining us. Whether you're new or a grizzled vet, I would be thrilled if you shared this with your friends, with parents and families with autism in their lives, with anyone interested in what being on the spectrum in 2021 is really all about. You're watching this on YouTube's Autism Broadcast Network channel. But did you know that you can also listen to this on your favorite podcast platform a week after the show airs? Go to your favorite podcast platform and search for Not Weird, Just Autistic. And you can also visit the Not Weird, Just Autistic Facebook page and see all the good stuff happening. While you're there, why not move the mouse over just a little bit to the follow button and click it? And I guarantee you will not get carpal tunnel syndrome from just that slight little move. So now that the shameless plugs are over, let's get on with the show. We're not scratching the surface of autism. This show was created to dig deeper into what it is to live an authentic autistic life in the world today. Our guests are experts in different facets of autism and other mental health issues and things that we struggle with also. And they come from around the world: Australia, the Netherlands, United States, Denmark, and today, Boise, Idaho. Dino Miliotis, the author of... Oh my God. The author of
There Is No Box.
There is no box. There we go. Wow. Yeah, I'm just going to call that an autistic moment. So, you know, as people with autism, like I said before the show, we're constantly being told we're thinking too much outside the box. Think inside the box. Think inside the box. And we're being shoved into that mold of a so-called normal person. Which, you know, I mean, what is normal really? But
right,
that's a whole other show. When we get pushed, we react in different ways. But I love your theory of there being no box. Can you explain that just a little bit?
Sure. Well, I mean, I didn't realize that I was following the there is no box concept, but I've been doing it all my life. Somebody pointed it out. I was very disappointed with how people were and they're structured, and you have to do this and then you'll get this. And I'm just like, I'm very disappointed. People disappoint. And he said, don't you understand, Dino? There is no box in your world. And it just really hit me because I was never one to do the traditional kind of studying. You know, you have to do this first and you have to do that. I learned my own way. Now, of course, I'm not autistic, but I certainly can relate to, you know, there's not only one way to learn, right?
Exactly. And I will say this: there are some neurotypicals, you know, people with neurologically typical brains that do think the same way we do, and I think that you're one of them.
Right. I mean, I saw your intro to your show, and you keep going over the color purple. I smell purple. Like, I'll walk into a room, I'm like, I smell purple. I don't know why I do it. Yeah, it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. So, you know, from very, very early on, my earliest memories, you know, is just I wanted to learn things my own way. I studied people. I watched their mannerisms. I kind of, you know, for me to comprehend something is just a little different. So reading a book, and again, I mean, I wrote a book, right? I'm selling a book.
Yeah.
And for me to say this is probably, you know, a little weird, but reading a book never did it for me. You know, it's somebody else's story.
I'm the same way, brother. I am the same way. I struggle to sit down, and I tell you what, I've been on chapter 1 of Neurotribes for the last 6 months. Because I get in there, I get 3 or 4 pages, and then my mind just starts going off on different places, and it is really hard to read.
It is. I mean, I was more a lover of movies because movies are kind of prepared a certain way, and you just kind of get lost in it, right? I would get consumed in the movies. And so, you know, again, I've never written a book before. I just knew I had to do it, right? And I wanted to spread hope. And so when I started writing the book, my biggest thing was, how do I write? I mean, I really didn't know. Yeah. And so I kind of recalled back on what I loved most about movies is, you know, the narration. And so I decided to write something that it almost felt like I'm with the reader through every twist and turn.
First person.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, I did the best I could, but I noticed when I was writing it, I cried at the sad parts. And these are things that maybe happened 40, 50 years ago. And, I laughed really hard at the funny parts of my story. And I just think that the reaction, I'm kind of hoping everybody gets that same reaction after reading it.
Yeah, well, I've got a book at the publisher that's coming out next year, and it's kind of an autobiography of, me growing up before there was a spectrum to be on, and then going through everything, and then that epiphany. And just so you know, the reason this is called Not Weird, Just Autistic is after I got diagnosed, I walked out of my psychologist's office and thought, I'm not weird, just autistic.
See, that's so cool. That's so cool for you to figure that out. A lot of people do not,
I know. It's sad.
I have a family member that suffers from very severe form of autism. And, it's just, everybody's like, well, he's not learning the way. And I'm like, this kid is not going to learn that way. They're going to learn their own way. And actually, incredibly smart.
Absolutely.
But it's just,
it's finding the key to unlock the door so that smartness can come out and that brain power can come out.
Yeah, no, I get it. So, I mean, you asked the question, there is no box. Everybody, to acknowledge that there is a box in the first place means already you're kind of tainted. Like if I read a book or before coming on this show, if I had a bio, like too much information about you, I'm already boxed in to what I'm supposed to think and feel and how I'm supposed to interact. I like it just like raw. You know what I mean? Because I don't want anybody else kind of tainting my view on what I'm supposed to think and feel, if that makes sense.
Oh, it totally makes sense. We are on the same page.
Yeah. So like reading about somebody else's life, and I know I want people to read my life, right? But reading about somebody else and how they did it, or having these sales 101 things where you're supposed to say this and the customer's supposed to say that. I never subscribe to that kind of thing. I think that if you can't, on the most basic level, connect with somebody, you're not really going to go far in sales or pretty much anything else, right? But you have to have that connection, and that's real. You can't fake that. And the way to do that is you have to listen to what's being told, right? And you have to communicate back. It's not what I think, it's what you think and feel.
Right.
That's important. And so I always kind of went against the grain, which wasn't really popular with my family. My dad was a school teacher for over 40 years, and he's the biggest, advocate for education. And not that there's anything wrong with education, but for some reason I wanted to just explore what I could do, push the limits. And, he's like, well, yeah, you could be this, but first you got to do this. You got to go to school. You got to get an education, you got to get a degree, and then you could be this. I'm like, why can't I be this and just treat education like education, not education equals success? You know what I mean? And so I just really wanted to push the envelope and just explore. So nothing was impossible for me. And this wasn't stuff that, I read a manual in order to be a good salesman, or I asked a bunch of questions about, well, I want to go into business. What do you think I should do? I didn't care. I just did it. And it was trial and error all the time, because it's just kind of, it seems like winging it, but, you learn from everything you do, and you just kind of fine tune, your approach and get really good at it. I think this isn't something that I only have. I think that everybody has this. They sometimes don't realize they do. And it's something that you can tap into and figure out that you can do anything. As long as you believe you can. As long as you believe you can.
Well, Dino, that kind of brings me into the next thing I wanted to talk about is I think it's really fair to say that in life, several times you've been there, done that.
Yeah.
And you've had very good highs, and you've had deep lows.
Yes.
And I know that takes a mental toll on us, both ways, actually. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your story, about some of your successes and failures, and how you got to the point of realizing that there was no box?
Sure. I mean, the first time I had incredible success was with a product I invented called Bug Ban, which was, nothing more than a plastic strap that was infused with, natural geranium, lemongrass, that kind of stuff. And it was just kind of a by accident, a chance meeting with the guy who manufactured these bracelets. He was in a booth next to me at a memorabilia show. And but he would put in this fragrance like flowers and perfumey kind of stuff, and he would market it like, oh, so little girls could smell like grown-up girls. I'm like, what the hell is that? Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, you know what? Your pitch sucks. I mean, I told him that, but he was receptive. It was at a time where we were in Chicago, and it was a bad summer for mosquitoes and malaria cases. The news was talking about this all the time, and they were talking about the traditional products like Off, which has the chemicals, but they were also talking about citronella oils and the natural stuff.
Sure.
I don't know what clicked in my head, but I was just like, well, instead of a fragrance like the flowers and stuff like that, can you put lemongrass? Can you put citronella in these things? He's like, sure, but why? I'm like, I don't know. I'm onto something. I'm thinking golf outings. I'm thinking people wearing them.
Hikers, campers, golfers.
Absolutely. So my mind was racing, but I really didn't know what I had. But I started seeing the response. I mean, Pepsi Cola bought a bunch of them. Motorola that year sponsored the Western Open. They bought a bunch of them for outdoors. And then along the way, somebody came to me and said, hey, have you ever thought about putting these in retail? And I'm like, retail? Why would I want to do that? It's like, oh, no, there's a market for that. So we developed the packaging a little bit different for retail stores, with the barcodes. Next thing you know, I'm everywhere. And then Sally, Jesse Raphael put me on the show, Oprah, People Magazine. I mean, I was just like...
Sally Jesse Raphael hates you, okay?
Yeah. Well...
that was a while ago.
It was cool. I mean, all these things were just brand new to me. I've never been used to being still not used to being on camera or being written about. And I honestly didn't know that I was the rags to riches story until I read about it myself. I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah, that's true. That did happen. I mean, I was so broke that I remember running and trying to get ready for a job interview. And then my power was cut off because, of course, I didn't pay the bill. And I was in mid-shave. So I ran and I got a candle, lit it, put it in the bathroom, and finished my shave by candlelight. It sounds romantic, but it's not. But I know, so when people are like broke, I mean, I was really broke. I would have garage sales and sell furniture that I actually needed. I mean, you find ways and you suffer. But at the same time, throughout everything that I've done, the low points, and really, really dark low points, by the way, I never lost hope that I'm better than this. I mean, I knew better. I knew that I had this incredible belief in myself, and sometimes it's exercising a little bit of patience, which sometimes say I don't really have, but, you just kind of got to wait it out and just believe in yourself, and things do happen. I mean, incredible things happen. So
I got a quick question. To be clear, you were very down, but at the same time, you were still optimistic and believed in yourself.
Absolutely. If I wasn't, I wouldn't have had the creative juices flowing and figured out this bug.
And I think that's so important that even when we are down, we still have to have that belief in ourselves and in our abilities.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the whole thing. Okay. So the book, it's a nice story about me. I don't consider myself an author. I consider myself a storyteller. And my story is a good story, not because it's me, but it's just anybody. Right. And, when people say, well, what's the book about? It sounds kind of weird, but it comes down to this. It's a message of hope. It's a message of hope that you can do anything as long as you set your mind to it. So that was a high point in my life. That was the first high point in my life. And of course, I lost it all and filed $10 million in bankruptcy 3-4 years later. And then I hit a really dark spot. But I got out of it. And, everybody's like, well, you were lucky, you had some success with Bug Band. Hey, look, you were in People magazine. So, good for you. You have a plaque to show for it. I'm like, you know what? I'm better than this. So people were like, you're lucky. Was it really luck? Because I did it again with a completely different product, which was payroll. You know how they have payroll processing and they do the checks for corporations. I saw a need right away. It was a perfect market. It was a perfect time for me to go there. And people gravitated to me. All the brokers came to me. I don't know why. I don't know why. But they came to me almost like, here's some business. Can you help me place it? And can you help, talk to my customers because you make them feel good? I'm like, sure. Next thing you know, I ramped that thing up. I had a book of business about $1 billion a year. I mean, I was making millions. I had everything I thought I wanted. And I say thought I wanted. Big cars, homes, and all that stuff. But I still felt kind of empty. I mean, I was very proud of myself that I accomplished this and I believed in myself and I could do these things. But I felt very empty because there was something missing, right? And I drowned mine out with alcohol. And I took a downward spiral where I literally walked away from $1 billion business. Just one day, just walked away from it. And I went to rehab, which is something that, most people don't like to talk about or they're not proud of. I never thought I'd be there, but, I knew that I needed help. And when I went in, I really, really left my attitude at the door. I left all that garbage behind and I really focused on me. Again, me, because I believed in myself. I'm like, you're just down, right? But you're not out. Right. You could get through this. Right. And I kept telling people in the facility, this is the first and last time you're going to see me here, right? So I did great. I'm clean and sober, proud to say. But when I got out, my mind was bubbling and bursting with ideas, of course. It was the first time in a long time that I was sober. And I wanted to do this. I wanted to do that. And, all these people from my old industry, they wanted me to come back in and have like the greatest comeback in the industry. Some other people wanted me to endorse some products that they had, but it just didn't feel special. And by the way, to compound that, I was on COVID lockdown, right? So you're in rehab and you get out and you're like, oh my God, I forgot we're in COVID. So, you're alone in the house. There's nothing to do. There's nothing really that is, grabbing you as far as like purpose. Mm-hmm. And you start your mind starts working on you, where I really felt like having a drink again, and right before I grabbed that bottle, I get a text from this kid, teenager. Met him 3 years prior at a car wash. He saw me drive one of my fancy cars there. And he's like, can I ask you a couple of questions? Because I'm thinking about doing business later. And, I wanted to find out what makes you successful. What advice would you give? And these are questions I get all the time. It's not just this. But I never stick around for the end result. I never find out what my talk did for that kid, right? Mm-hmm. But this was the first time I get a text from one of these kids. I call him Car Wash Kid, because he was at the car wash. And it's like, hey, I hope you're doing well. I haven't talked to you in a while. And I was wondering if I could meet you for lunch. It would be an honor. I have more questions. The advice that you gave me, has really helped me out with my life. And I can't thank you enough. And I'm reading this text and I'm like, wow, I'm ready to take a drink. Look what effect you have on people. Right.
Right.
It was a no-brainer. Some people look for a sign, like, oh, please give me a sign. I had one. That's a sign. I don't know what else to call it. And so I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I knew exactly. I'm like, this kid just changed my life, saved my life. And then everything just seemed very, very clear. Never had the urge anymore to drink or anything like that. I mean, I was sober, but sometimes people get urges. Never had one because I had purpose. I'm on a mission. So there's a lot of incredible things that I'm working on down the road. And people are like, well, why aren't you doing this one? I needed to write a book, brother. You know, I needed to spread the word. I needed to help people who are probably just like me, feeling down, not believing in themselves. And I'm here to say, hey, look what I did. I'm nothing special. I'm not extraordinary, but my life is only because I believed in myself.
Right. And that is so awesome. And I think that really relates to a lot of the way people on the spectrum are, you know, we get excited about things, we get focused on things, and then, you know, things go great for a while and then they go down and then we get into that depression.
Right.
And more often than not, it takes a while because that belief has to bubble back up again. But
Yeah.
I think that's the most important thing is you've got to have that belief in yourself and your abilities.
Right. And the other thing is the understanding that you can't only have good times. You know what I mean? Part of life, and they call it a journey. Sometimes that works. Sometimes I think it sounds a little hokey, but the point is like if everything was good in your life, then you'd never really appreciate it, right? For me, for a long time, I was chasing money. Money comes, but that's not what I should have been chasing. What I should have been chasing is feeling fulfilled and having a purpose. Just like you were spreading the message to your followers, I'm kind of doing the same thing, saying, look, you know, these people that say, oh, must be nice, or I wish I could have that, or I wish I could do that. Why are you wishing? Man, you got everything you need to do that. You just have to try. You have to believe in yourself, and you can't always get discouraged just because something didn't work out. That's life, man. It wasn't always meant to be easy.
And, you know, I think from the way I see you and I hear you talking, that now you've gotten off that it's all about the money. And if this book can just help a few people, it was worth it.
Yeah. And, you know, the way I saw it, I mean, and it's in the book, actually, the last chapter, I just decided to, you know, make the chapter called Deleted Scene, which is, again, from my movie loving days. And it's actually the recorded conversation I had with an editor that I called immediately when I decided to write a book. And they're like, oh, that's great. Yeah, we could help you with the book. What's it about? I'm like, it's about my life. Well, what kind of message do you want to send? I mean, what do you want to teach them? Because they labeled it right away a self-help book. I said, I don't want to teach them anything. They're like, well, you have to teach them something. I'm like, this is like a Seinfeld episode. It's a show about nothing.
Yeah.
This is a book about nothing. They're like, okay, what is it? And I said, well, it's a message of hope, right? And through this book, through the inspiration that I'm hoping people get out of this book, one touch changes the world, man. And I believe that, you know.
Absolutely.
Think of all the problems during just COVID alone, right? Regular people, not people that are down and out, how much it worked on their psyche just to be in, not interacting, right? I mean, there's so many things that we don't even know that are probably going to come out in the future. Mental health is, you know, I mean.
Already anxiety and depression rates are going up as far as psychologists and psychiatrists are telling us.
I believe it. I mean, you know, if anybody's like me, you know, they had on TV these binge-a-thons, and mine was Law and Order. I watched all 456 episodes. Yeah, I mean, what do you do? So, you know, I tried to stay healthy, and you know, I work out the best I could. Then you have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and a binge-a-thon. That's all I had. And then all of a sudden, when I decided to write this book, I had purpose, man. I mean, I was up all the time. I was writing, I was dictating. It was something special for me. And now that the book is out and it's published, you know, I'm having so much fun hitting the road, talking to people, regular people, what I call them with extraordinary dreams.
Absolutely. And I think that describes the autistic community is we do have big dreams, but I think a lot of times we're held back from them, and we need to really push and go for those dreams.
You're absolutely right. And here's another thing, and I think we share. I mean, I was always laughed at for my dreams. I was, the guy that, dare to dream. I'd share it with people. Hey, I'm going to be this. I'm going to have this. I'm going to have it. And they'd snicker. And that would really bother me, And I could see it's the same way, maybe with you and your story that, I mean, you're already counted out. You're already counted out. Like, well, he can't really do that, So let's almost like lower the bar for you. And, I think that's completely wrong. I mean, you have to dream. Here's what I say, and it may fit. If you dream, like if you really dream, you should be able to taste it. I mean, that's how hard you dream. And that's how real things were for me. I believed it so much, And, people are going to laugh. People are going to ridicule. People will say you can't do it. What are they supposed to say? Let me ask that, right?
Right.
Are they supposed to say, well, if you want to be successful, let me tell you how to do it. Because they don't know. They've never done it themselves, but they want to give you some advice.
Right.
And so you politely, what I would do is I would politely take their advice and say, thank you very much. And I go right back into what I think I should be doing. It just happens, right? But you have to try.
Yeah. And I'd like to know what you think about this, but I heard all my life that I was not going to live up to my potential. And I think potential is one of the worst words in the English language.
Yeah, I agree. It's almost like I'm disappointed. You know what I mean? Potential, define potential. I mean, there's some extraordinary things that have come out of ordinary people. All right. We're just two people, right? But there's a lot more of us. I believe there's a silent army. And I believe, unlike me and unlike you, there's a lot of people that are afraid to say what they really want, to verbalize their dreams because they don't want to be made fun of. And, I'm here to say, here's what I experienced. First, there's ridicule, right? And then if you're trying something and you start succeeding at it, then there's silence by your peers because they don't really know what to say or do. And then there's, unfortunately, like the envy, or they'll call and say, hey, so-and-so needs a job. Can you help him? And you can't help but think in your head, right? Just a little bit like a condescending kind of thought, like, where were you when I had this dream? But that's just how people are. And you got to let it go. Yeah. You got to let it go. And you just got to say that, as a leader, as somebody who can inspire others, that's where your head should be at. It shouldn't be at resentment and anger. And, a lot of people have that and they consume themselves with hate their entire life. Just let it go. People are going to make fun of you. So what? So what?
I hear you. So, hey, let's, the last few minutes we got here, let's talk a little bit more about the book. People, you can see it on the bottom of your screen. It's available in paperback and Kindle on Amazon. Can they buy it from your site as well?
They can't buy it from my site. They could go to my site and it'll direct them to Amazon.
Yeah, that's where I got the Amazon link from, was from your site. Perfect.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. This is a new venture. I already have a second book in my head. And believe it or not, I'm trying to make this one, There Is No Box, a movie. Because I think it would be a perfect movie. It would actually be better as a movie.
I do like the 5-minute clip on your website.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, they just basically said talk, and I did. And there's nothing off the table. I'll talk about everything. And I'm happy to be in a position where I have a chance to inspire other people. I mean, you have to embrace your gift. And mine is that I'm able to inspire others. I never realized it my entire life, but that's what I do. And it's very fulfilling. And I'm just really, really happy to be able to share my book with you and your audience.
And you know what? And you can tell that it comes out. It's just you exude that I want to help you attitude, which I think is amazing.
Yeah.
So, hey, we got to get going now. But again, DinoMiliotis.com on the bottom of your screen. Whether you're on the spectrum, off the spectrum, check him out. He's got some great ideas that are outside the box. Although there is no box, so how can you be outside the box?
That's right.
That's right. But,
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. I want to have you back again. Thank you so much. And hang on for just 1 minute.
No problem.